joining us tonight, all BT members, all BZD members, all Baltimore members and beyond. Hi to everyone who's waving. I can see you on different screens, everyone that I know. Thank you to Beth Tefillah congregation for co-sponsoring this Rosh Hashanah event with us tonight. This is really a fun, I think, little challah bake, Zoom challah bake online that we're really excited to do here. My name is Karen Levin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Executive Director of the Baltimore Zionist District.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. It is so wonderful to be here with you. This is my last event with Beth Tefillah, and it couldn't be more special because I get to do it with BZD and with Karen, as we have a long history together. So I do want to thank Karen and BZD for having us co-host with them tonight. It is so wonderful to see so many people with us this evening to bake together. I hope that everyone is doing well, keeping busy, staying safe. Hopefully this is, something you'll continue to do as all the holidays pass, and may you all have a happy, healthy, sweet new year.
Mandy Silverman founded Mandylicious in 2013 in Sharon, Massachusetts. Since then, she's created over 300 unique challah and babka recipes and has developed a worldwide following, including over 25,000 Instagram followers. In addition to selling challah and teaching classes, she loves sharing her recipes and tips and supporting others who want to bake their own challahs. So that being said, we will be taking questions tonight. We will be, however, taking them in the group chat. We promise to take as many questions as we can. We will most likely, with 45 participants and growing, may not be able to get to all of them because Mandy does have a lot to teach us tonight, but we promise to get to as many of them as possible. Marlene and I will be covering the chat together. Make sure you ask the questions to all and not privately to Marlene and I. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mandy. Mandy, I'm going to spotlight you now and let you do your thing because everybody's here for you.
Hello. Oh, that's a lot of pressure when everyone comes.
I know, and please introduce your daughter too.
It's gonna be all right. Okay, this is why I have Phoebe. She's very soothing. All right, well, I'm so happy you guys are all here tonight, and this is gonna be so fun. We're gonna make so many different kinds of challahs with so many different kinds of variations that you're gonna come out with like a gigantic challah. Like, this is my beautiful daughter, Phoebe-licious. She's gonna help me tonight because I find that if someone is in the room with me doing the activities that I'm trying to teach, I can sort of see what you all are doing at the same time. And then if there's any issues that come up, then I can also help and probably be helping you as well. And then I'm not like on autopilot just doing things, because I don't know if you know this, but when you make like 1,000 challahs a year, probably 2,000 challahs at this point, you make 2,000 challahs a year, you start like just doing things and not even like paying attention to them anymore. That's not conducive to a good learning environment. So we have Phoebe, who is and she is very cool and a team player. Okay, so let's go through the things that we're going to do tonight. The first thing I'm going to do with everyone is just show you how to make the dough. Tips on kneading, consistency, ingredients that you'll use when you make challah. I gave you the recipe for my original dough and my honey spice dough. I'm going to do the original because it's a little easier to see what it's like, and that's most likely the dough that you'll be using more frequently. But the same rules apply to the consistency for the honey spice dough as they do for the plain dough. And in fact, any dough recipe that you use, you probably really need to get that consistency right before you get started. Then we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you a basic braid and how I do a spiral challah, round challah for Rosh Hashanah. And then after that, we're going to go on to Nutella, and to finish off in a grand challah finale, there'll be fireworks. No, wouldn't that be cool? We should be dangerous. Maybe not fireworks. Okay, no fireworks. But we'll do a honey spice dough with an apple pie filling. So that's going to be amazing. These things can be made in either dough. So if you like honey spice with Nutella, you go for it. If you want to make your apple pie challah in a plain challah, you go for it. There are no rules in Mandylicious land except be nice to each other and say please and thanks. But other than that, in terms of challah, they're always going to be beautiful. You're always going to try your hardest. And I think that whatever you do is going to be amazing, because that is the rule. That when you try yourself, you try your hardest, no matter how it comes out at the end, as long as you know that you did your best, it really does. That's the most important, because you've ended up with carbs. So yay, we can say look a little wonky. Who cares? We do like carbs. Right. So let us begin. The very first rule of Mandy Delicious challah baking is what, Phoebe? We put our hair up. You have, so I recommend if you have your hair down to put it up, just because I think it's a little, you know. Second thing that we do is what, Phoebe?
Wash our hands.
We wash our hands. So,
Mandy, while Phoebe's washing her hair, do you make gluten-free challah?
I do. I don't sell it, but I do have a recipe for it on my Instagram. There's actually a whole Insta story highlight. I worked on it for many moons because gluten-free is not, I deal with gluten largely, so it's hard. So I did a lot of research and I combined a lot of different tricks and things that I found out about gluten-free challah, and I put them all together to make a challah that can be braided actually, with enough patience. So that's all on my Instagram. You can find it there.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then just to add to that real quickly, vegan challah, no eggs.
Yes,
as well? Okay.
Actually the challah, you can write this down. The recipe that you have tonight, there is a vegan option on it. It's a, so we have in a regular recipe, it calls for 4 egg yolks, but for the vegan, we don't use the egg yolks, and we use, instead of the amount of water listed, we use 1.5 cups of water, and instead of the amount of oil listed, we use 1/2 cup of oil. Those are the only changes, and it's great.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, let us begin. So, first things first. My recipe calls for bread flour and instant yeast. Those are the 2 important things that I like to make sure people notice before we get started. If for some reason you were only able to find all-purpose flour, don't fret, it will be okay, but you'll definitely need a lot more flour than what we're using tonight, okay? Because the gluten and the gluten-free and the all-purpose, it's not as glutinous, so it doesn't stick together as nicely. So be prepared for that. And if you used, I call for instant yeast, so look at your package of yeast right now. If it says active dry and not instant, that means you're gonna have to activate your yeast first. So my recipe calls for 1 1/3 cup water. What I recommend is taking 1/3 of that 1 1/3 cup water, turning it, adding it to water that's around 105 degrees. 105 means that you can put your hand under it and it feels warm, but not hot. Like you don't have to, because you can kill your yeast, which is very scary. I know. It's not violent. They don't feel any pain, but it will keep your challah from rising, which nobody wants. And also, if your water isn't warm enough, then it also won't activate it. So hopefully, you were all able to find the instant yeast because that is stress-free, which is what I like to focus on here. Okay, so those notes, and if your kitchen is particularly humid, if your air conditioning is broken or something like that right now, also you might want to start with a little less water, but we'll get into that later. So let's begin.
Hand cam time.
Hand cam time. Hey! Okay, so here we go. This is my of the bowl, and we'll start. The ingredients can go in any way because I call for instant yeast. So that's a very popular question. They say, Mandy, what order do the ingredients have to go in? The answer is any order that you want. If you're using your bread machine, please use the order that the bread machine instructions came with. Everyone's different. Mine's liquid to dry. All right, so here we go. 4 1/4 cup of bread flour. Whew, there's like a floury thing there. All right, next we'll put in a generous 1/2 cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of table salt. I do not use fancy salt. It's just regular old salt, and I've had the most luck with the regular old salt. It'll come out there. Okay. There we go. All right, fantastic. Next is so 1/3 cup of oil. Now, I use canola oil. Some people, but you can use vegetable oil, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. People have used a variety of different oils, and they all turn out great. Some slight variations on consistencies, and you might have to adjust the flour amount as you see fit. But in general, they're totally fine. And now we're going to move on to Phoebe's favorite part of every class, separating the eggs.
Yum, yum.
She loves it.
No.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Just eventually she will. So here's the deal with the eggs. A lot of people use egg separators, or they go back and forth with the shell, and that works out fine. The shell sometimes is hard because you get shell stuck in your dough. And the egg separators, they just take forever. So I actually find that using my hands is the fastest way to separate the eggs. So that is what Phoebe is doing right now, and those of you making your dough right now can do it as well. And the reason people also say, Mandy, why do you use egg yolks and not the whole egg? And the reason I do that is because for me, it makes a difference on the consistency. I tried when I started making the challahs. So I started my business 7 years ago. I just started making challahs 8 years ago, and I was doing it trying to help my mom figure out a recipe that someone else used. And trying to figure that out, I went through a bunch of recipes, and in the end, I picked and chose what I enjoyed from all the different recipes to make my own recipe. And I found that using just the egg yolks had a beautiful, rich consistency to the dough. So that's why I chose to use the egg yolk. For the egg whites, you can freeze them. You can make meringues. You can, what a lot of people do is they save them in their fridge and then they make an omelet on Sunday morning, a Mandy-licious omelet. I don't know if they call it a Mandy-licious omelet, but I wish that they would call it a Mandy-licious omelet because that would be kind of fun. Then they could put fun things in it. All right, so now we're going to begin the kneading part of the dough. All right. Oh, wait, I forgot the water. Sorry, Phoebe, go ahead. See, keeping me on my toes. 1 1/3 cup of water, and then we have to do the yeast. So like I said, the water is, if you used active dry yeast and not instant, go check it. If there are bubbles at all, that's great. That means your yeast is alive and you can add it to the rest of the ingredients. And everyone who has instant yeast, you just throw it on it, just like Phoebe. And now she's going to begin wow, Phoebe, that's quite the pile. Okay, here we go. So some people like to start their kneading with a spoon. I figure, in my extensive desire to not do as many dishes as possible, that I'm just going to get my hands dirty anyways, because kneading always involves your hands. So I just go straight for my hands, which is what Phoebe is doing. Now, Phoebe is also turning her bowl as she's kneading the dough. That helps you get the dough from multiple ways in multiple actions. It's like you become your own mixer. You can definitely use a mixer with a dough hook, and you can use a bread machine, like I said. But the most important thing when kneading your dough is that after you get it to the right consistency, that you knead it for those 5 full minutes, because the dough needs to get very smooth and all the gluten needs to break to like squish it together. So what Phoebe is doing now is she's using the heel of her palm to push the dough ball against the side of the bowl, and she's pushing and spinning, pushing and spinning. The reason I recommend using this part of your hand is because a lot of people, and again, if you have a way that you knead and it works well for you, do that. But I find that when people start tearing the dough with their fingers and squishing it, as delightful as that feels, it is you're tearing the gluten, and we're trying to squish the gluten. So sometimes when you're tearing it, you end up with sticky dough all over again, and we don't have time for that. Actually, our dough tonight isn't so sticky. It's more on the dry. Is it dry?
I think it's a little dry.
You add a little water. So this is the rule. You don't want your hands to be covered in stickiness, right? That's too wet, and your dough is too wet. But you also don't want to feel like you're kneading a brick. It's a very fine line, because people tend to always add more flour, because sticky dough is hard to work with, right? We have to braid it. We have to do all sorts of crazy things with this dough. So we're scared to have dough that's too sticky. It's totally normal, and it happens so frequently. But unfortunately, the biggest issue that people have with their final dough, their dough consistency, is if it doesn't rise enough, or if it tastes dense. And 95% of the time, it's because too much flour was added at the beginning. I have a whole highlight on it on my Instagram where you can see the just right, too wet, or too dry. Too dry dough leads to a floury taste, but the tight dough that's being created because it's so dry doesn't have enough room to grow, so it inhibits the rise of the yeast. So that's why getting that just right consistency is so important. If you see that your dough ball is covered with flour and you cannot push it easily, then you might have to add a little water. If you find that your hand is just covered with dough and you're not able to get the dough to get off the bottom of the bowl, then you're going to have to add a little flour. It's not a big deal. As long as you get your dough to the just right consistency, you have succeeded. That's the goal, is to just right it. So I think in the end, you need a little flour. I was surprised. Yes, me too. Really seemed right there. She tried, but we didn't have it, so that was good. It's so different, because every kitchen is different. You're not in my kitchen. I'm not in your kitchen. The weather outside by me is not the weather outside by you. My brand of bread flour is not your brand of bread flour. You might not even be using bread flour. So to give a recipe and that assumes all these things is challenging. So that's why my first part of any of my recipes is always like, check that consistency, check it out, because it can vary from place to place, day to day, location to location, weather to weather. It does change. Okay, so Phoebe's going to be eating. So we do this for 5 full minutes. When I first started making challah and babka even, my idea was like, okay, this is it. Here, let me just show this. And be like, it's all come together in a ball. It's good enough. And a lot of people do say that. But then I would go to my mom's house and she would have like the most delicious challah, the most delicious babka. And so I'm like, we're using the same recipe. What's the difference? The difference was that she needed it for the full time and I was just lazy. Not lazy, but perhaps distracted by other things like children or doing nice things. Wes, is there a question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There's a question of whether dough rises better with instant yeast or active yeast.
They actually are exactly the same. Measure for measure. There was a whole hoopla about it a few years ago, how some people are like, instant yeast is blah, 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 and active yeast is blah, blah, blah. Well, the authority, what do you want, flour? The authority on flour and yeast and bread, is King Arthur. And King Arthur had said himself, came to me now, okay, there's an article, that it is the same. Instant yeast and active dry act the same, and instant yeast is actually preferred because, like I said, active dry, you can murder, it might not be activated. There's this level of uncertainty with active dry that you don't have in instant. That said, you have to be careful with instant yeast because instant yeast is, they come in different kinds. Instant yeast or bread machine yeast are the same. Rapid rise or quick rise are different. Those are instant yeast, but they've been treated differently and they make your dough whoosh, they get really big, but then they don't have a second rise. It's not designed for this kind of slow rising challah that we're making. So it sometimes will lead to an over rise where it sort of rises and then flattens right out, which is not.
Yeah, does the order of adding ingredients matter if you're using active yeast?
No, it's the same thing, but you'd have to activate it first. So like when we added our yeast at the end, you could add it at the beginning, the end, as long as it bubbles, so you see that it's been activated, you can add it in whenever. Okay? All right, so anyways, eating it for that full 5 minutes is, I think you're pretty good there, Phoebe, is great. Let me pinch more flour. And then your dough ball should be so smooth that you don't even see any clumps of flour, because that's going to be the biggest, you'll notice it. Like if you've ever not kneaded your dough enough and all of a sudden you decide to put forth, like, let me just time myself. I always make a timer on Alexa because I can never pay attention to, and I think I've been kneading for 57 minutes, but really I've only been kneading for like a minute and a half. So. But actually this is fun. I had an eye on a timer and you're actually doing really good, Phoebe. This is beautiful.
It's getting much faster than normal.
I know, so I don't know, the weather must be nice.
So gross out.
65.
Maybe it's easier when it's colder.
It is easier when the summer is. It is a little easier. And some it's harder in the summer because of the humidity, or when it's rainy. But when it's snowing, it's fine, which is great because we live in Massachusetts and it always snows. Okay, so I'm going to say this is good. This is beautiful. So I'm going to put this to the side. So this will rise for an hour and a half. So I have a towel. Oh, where's it? Fabulous. So like a lot of opinions on rising. My personal opinion is that dry, for me, works just fine if I cover it with a regular old dry towel and I just leave it on my counter for an hour and a half. Some people like to use a wet towel. That's fine. Some people like to cover it with saran wrap and then a towel. It's important it's not in the refrigerator. It's important it's not in like a cold area. And it's important that it's dark. That's what the towel does. So those are the things that are important. Anything else you want to do, you can see if it matters for you and your experience is fine. I used to turn my oven on to 200 degrees and then turn my oven off and then put the challah dough in there. But I baked, then I would like go back and forget that I had dough in there and I preheat the oven and then I bake my dough and it was very frustrating. So then I started doing it on my counter and I noticed that it didn't really matter.
Mandy, there's a question about my challah rises nicely but is doughy in the middle, even when I bake it for longer. Why might this happen?
Usually, if it's doughy in the middle, it's a couple of things. If it wasn't cold when you put it in the oven, your oven could be cooking at a temperature that's higher than you think it is. So ovens, even if they say 350, they change a lot, and some people's oven temperatures can be way off. So sometimes it's your oven's cooking at 370 instead of 350, and even that little bit of a difference might affect it. You might be cooking it at too high a rack in your oven, so you might want to try lowering it so it cooks in the middle, and that'll have it. If you also could try, if you're cooking, try doing the opposite of whatever you're cooking it in. If you're cooking it on a sheet, try cooking it on a loaf pan, so maybe that radiating heat throughout the loaf will help. Because I'm not there in your kitchen, I can't see. These are just the most common things. The most common reason that happens is someone's using a refrigerated dough and the dough is still too cold to work with, or their oven is just, it happens, their oven's the wrong temperature. So it's cooking too fast and the middle doesn't get caught up. All right? So now we're gonna move on to our plain dough. I'm gonna first show you how to do a 3-stranded challah that's round, all right? I went through many people, this time of year is crazy in the kitchen. I don't know for you, and this year's a little less crazy because we're not having so much company, obviously, but it's also more crazy because you want more things to feel more special, even though it's a limited experience. So I don't have a lot of time to mess around with these like very intricate, beautiful strands that you see. So I don't like to do that. And then the simple spirals that are beautiful, I had because it was too dense in the middle because I wasn't able to spiral them correctly. A lot of people have an issue where it is doughy in the middle because it's not being properly spread out. So the way that I do it, it looks very fancy, but it's very fast. So that's the best. So here we go. We're going to take our plain dough here, and we're going to put it on the counter. Now the rule about flouring your surface is you don't want to overflour. Just like you don't want to have dry dough at the beginning, you don't want to have dry dough now. Because again, and it's even worse now because if it's too dry, it's not even going to be rising much more than its second rise, and the flat and the dry, it's not going to, definitely won't get better. After your first rise, when you put your dough together before that first rise, your dough is as best as it's going to get. So it's not going to improve while it rises. You'll be better off if you just get it perfect before that first rise, then go back in now and come back to a nice dough. This dough actually came out great. So this dough is a different dough that has risen for an hour and a half, and we're going to go ahead and cut this in half because it makes 2 average size challahs. Things that I recommend having, but I don't ever say that you have to, are this beautiful dough cutter. I love having a dough cutter. It's great for cleaning off your counters. It's also great, especially if you do a lot of baking and you're tearing and tearing and tearing. This actually, I learned this the hard way, that you can actually hurt this part of your wrist if you keep doing it. So it keeps me from hurting that. And the scale is because even though I say all the time, and I definitely mean it, that your challah is whatever you put, like the love you put in it, it doesn't make a difference what it looks like, but I still know that people prefer having their dough be even and their braids be even. And if you have a scale, you're able to have an exact weight. So you have less of a chance of having one wonky braid, that one wonky strand of your braid that's smaller or bigger than another. Okay, so we've divided it in half, and now we're going to cut this into 3 strands, also all equally sized. So it's a 3-pound recipe, so it makes around 3 pounds of dough. So each half is 1.5 pounds, and then each piece is around 8 ounces. But because we do so many, I talk so much about adding flour and adjusting and things like that, it's going to be different every time. So that's why I never put like precise ounces on there, because it's so different every time, and I try and be as precise as possible. And if you go in with a general idea of how many ounces it's supposed to be, that's might come back and bite you, because it's gonna not, because you'll have a different amount that you're working with every time. So right now these are like around 7 ounces. All right, here we go. So we'll cut all the half into 3 now. Yeah, that's a good. That's fine. All right, so we'll leave them all, so we'll be ready to go. And then we'll talk a little bit about rolling your dough into snakes. Yeah. That is so many people's most favorite part of the whole challah experience. So there's a couple of ways that you commonly see people snakeifying their dough. To snake the dough is, you'll see people just like you squeezing the dough like that, which is great. Phoebe, now show them your favorite. You don't look happy enough. Like
I was confused. It was switched to the face and we're showing our hands.
I know, it's back and forth. So anyway, so those are 2 people. They just like to just stretch around, or they like to do this. The problem I found when you do this is, and you should do that if that's what you feel comfortable with, but the problem I found is that you'll always end up with a wonky side, because that's the side that you're holding on to, so that side's going to be thinner and pinched. And so when you're trying to have even strands, which is what the goal is that that gets in the way. So what I do is I call it the butterfly stretch, and I use the sides of my thumbs to stretch the dough and push. Phoebe is doing it right now. She's butterflying away. Stretch and pull, stretch and pull. If you are doing just a standard loaf size, they should be around probably 9 to 10 inches long. you don't want a really long, skinny loaf. Or you can, if you're using a loaf pan, you can just use the loaf pan as sort of a guide for how long you want your strands to be. But because today we're doing a round challah, we want our strands to be very long, around 12 to 18 inches, because we want to be able to spirally them all up. So let's do that. We're going to get these really long. People who want to add raisins to their dough or chocolate chips sometimes, this is a great way. This is, instead of putting flour down, put your raisins or your chocolate chips down and roll your strands into them. And then you have perfectly coated strands. And then when you braid them, they're all tucked inside. And it's a very fast and easy way to get your raisins in your challah, because if you knead your dough with raisins in it, and the sugars from the raisins release, and it'll mess up your rise, because too much sugar in your dough will mess up your rise. And if you just sprinkle them on top, they all burn, because they have a different cooking time than your challah. And if you stuff them inside, like how we're going to do our Nutella and our apple pie recipes, then we'll also have a problem, because that big a bite of raisins, honestly, is just gross. I mean, I feel if you really like raisins, you can do whatever you want, but I find that rolling your dough in the raisins is a good way to make sure you have, instead of flour, is a good way to make sure you have just the right amount. Okay, so now we have our 3 very long strands of challah dough. And I'll do a very, I don't want to say quick, because I'll go slow, but I just want to run through, so I know that all of you are different levels of challah, and so some people have been braiding for 1,000 years, and some people have never braided. So I will tell you the way that I braid and how I remember to braid, and then we'll use this braiding the entire rest of the class. Okay?
Mandy,
yeah.
Before you get into the braiding, you were just talking about chocolate chips and raisins, and now that's all I want. But someone was asking, do you soak the raisins to plump them?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I mean, I guess in theory you could soak them in like something fun, like, rum. But but I don't know. I don't. But you can. There's no reason not.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Braid
welcome.
away. Braid away.
All right, here we go. We're going to begin the braiding. Now, people, as I've said, everyone can braid however they feel comfortable. People braid from the top and they go down. People go from the bottom and they go up. And that's fine. The problem that I find when I do it personally is that sometimes you end up with an uneven braid. You have a beautiful mermaid tail, which is not always the look we're going for. So I found that to braid from the middle helps me. Now, it does add a little teeny tiny bit more complexity, but the odds of success are greater. And I made myself a little story to tell myself while I do the braiding, because that also helps me. So my rule when we're braiding is that everybody wants a turn in the middle. Like, these are 3 guys that are all hanging out, and everyone wants a turn to be in the middle. So I'm going to start on the bottom, and on the bottom, because it's the bottom, we go under. All right? So I'll start from the right, and we'll go under, and now he's in the middle. Now we'll go to try this guy, give him a turn. He's going to go under, and he's going to be in the middle. All right? So that's what we're going to do, so on and so forth, all the way down to the bottom of the braid. Okay? The right, he goes under, so he has a turn in the middle. The left goes under, and the right goes under, and they're all having a chance to be in the middle, and it's all fair for everyone. Okay? Then when you get to the end, you'll tug a little bit, and then you'll tuck it under, pinch and tuck. Perfect. All right, and now we'll do the same thing for the top, but because it's the opposite, because we're starting on the top and not the bottom, we'll do everything the other way. So instead of starting on the right, we'll start on the left, and instead of going under, because we're going on top, we'll go on top. So we'll start from the left. The left goes over the middle, so he has a turn in the middle. The left goes over the right. The right goes over the middle, and then the left goes over the middle. Thanks, Susie. And then the right, I get lost. This is why I have many reasons, but this is a great one. Right, left, all the way at the end, then pinch and tuck. Okay? And what you've ended up with is gorgeous. All right. So then you have ended up with this very long, skinny braid. All right? And now, are you ready? Here we go. So now this is the magic. Here you go. Any end you want, you take it, spiral it up, making sure not to keep your center lower, because if you start piling up your dough, it'll have problems cooking in the middle. And take your tail and tuck it under. All right? There you go. And that's it. So we've got this whole loaf. And then what I like to do is, just to be sure that that middle hasn't gotten too wound up from spiraling, I just take my thumbs and I pop it down just to make sure it's flat. And then you're all done. And then it's ready to go over and rise under the towel for 20 to 30 minutes for its second rise, okay? I don't do a very long second rise, it's 20 to 30 minutes for my recipe, all right? So now that we've seen the way that I braid and do round challahs, we're gonna begin the stuff. Now the stuffing, there's two different ways that I like to seal my dough when I'm stuffing. One is for thin ingredients like Nutella or like butter or garlic butter, things like that. And one's for thicker ingredients like chocolate chip cookies or brownie batter or cookie dough, or in our case, we're using apples tonight for Rosh Hashanah. All right, so those are two different ways. So let's keep that in mind while we're doing this, but either way, you're gonna wanna roll out those strands nice and thin, nice and long, but this is big but. I'm gonna tell you to roll them out around 12 inches long, like 10 to 12, they can be a little shorter this time because we're gonna go back in with our rolling pin. Rolling pin will work, a glass, a can, whatever. I'm gonna go back in after that, and so we'll make them a little longer with the rolling pin, but then we have to get them to be wide, right? And I know that's hard because the natural thing that the dough wants to do is bounce back, but with enough effort, we can put our whole body into it, we can roll it or use our hands to stretch it out. You wanna get that dough at least 3 to 4 inches wide, which is be a challenge, but if you can get to like 3 inches, it'll be so much easier for you in the long run. So 3 or 4 inches if you can do that. All right, so here we are, Phoebe. While we were speaking, Phoebe's so efficient tonight. You're like on fire. Man, you let me clean my room later. You're serious?
No.
Okay. Fine. She's so much more responsible than me. All right, so we have, let's put those over here so everyone can see all the mystical, magical rolling. So we have our long strands that we rolled out with our butterfly technique. And now we're going to use our rolling pin to flatten the strands. The thing here to notice is you want to make sure that your surface is not too floury. If your surface is too floury, your strands are going to slide all around your surface and you won't be able to get the traction that you're looking for, because you need there to be a little bit of traction so the dough will stay still while you're rolling. But you can sprinkle a little on top. You can just put a little on top. There. Okay, beautiful. Woo! I should get a second one so we can do it at the same time.
Yeah,
Or then we have like rolling pin battle.
If you want to roll it and I stretch it out, the rolling pin never works well for me.
Phoebe's anti-rolling pin, but I'm pro-rolling pin.
Is there a reason why you use metal rolling pin versus wood?
No, I used my great-grandmother's rolling pin for a long time, and then it was time for it to go to its special rolling pin place in the sky. And I was researching different rolling pins, and this one, the metal is good. I don't use it for this for challah, obviously, but if you're rolling out a dough that involves like a chilled butter or something like that, this will help the dough stay cold. So it'll stay flakier when it goes. Also, I like it because it's shiny. But other than that, no, I think it's dishwasher safe, which is another big plus for me personally. But no, it's all very personal.
Not working well for me.
Phoebe's having a rough go with her
Yeah,
red.
the stove is very stretchy, but
There
not
we
in a
go.
good way.
Not in a good way. No, let me try.
Say if I pull it out and then I
Yeah.
put it down,
I
it's
think
going to
it's
break out
good.
again.
No, this is not bad at all. The dough is designed, like I said, to stay close together, but it also should be like almost like pizza dough. So if you're having a hard time rolling it out, you can also just gently use like your knuckles to just gently stretch it as you go, and that could also save you some time in a pinch. Also, if you don't like rolling the dough and have a fight with the rolling pin, not naming names. It's all right. You guys will make up eventually. You always do. No, that's good. Should I get you your own special rolling pin
No.
that you like more than my
No.
special rolling pin? I'll get it. It's
I'm
Phoebe's
good.
birthday on Wednesday. So I think a rolling pin is the best present ever. Turn 15, you get a rolling pin. Huh?
So,
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Happy
sure,
birthday.
sure.
Phoebe. All right. Awesome. So these are great. They're not cooperative. They're not cooperative, but I think in the end we did it. Let me get that guy one more time with the rolling pin. Okay. So the dealio is, I gave you a general amount of Nutella to use, because the newer you are at stuffing a challah, the less Nutella, the less filling you're going to want to use, because it does get more challenging and things start to ooze out. And then when things start to ooze out, it gets stressful because sometimes your strands won't seal. And even if they don't seal, I'll tell you this right now, it'll still be beautiful and perfect. But I recommend using a little bit less if this is your first go around, and then as you get more and more comfortable with the dough, you can add more and more down the center, okay? So you're gonna put around 2 tablespoons, 1 or 2 tablespoons. You can start down the middle of
Oh, this is not a knife.
Oh, can you give me a knife, Danny? I forgot, it's in a spoon, and then we need a knife. That's a murdery knife.
Awesome. I forgot the no murder rule.
No murder!
You're about to cut the dough.
Okay, so then you put it, Phoebe's gonna put this, a nice thin layer down the middle of the strand, leaving a little bit along a little border around the edges, just because you'll find when we seal it up that that little bit is going to be important for sealing purposes, because you'll need to roll it over and whack it closed. It needs to be dry. And if there's any filling there, then it's going to come back and squeeze through your little pinchy area, and it will be harder to pinch. Okay, so, and if that happens, fret not. All the things that can happen, I have messed up with, and I have done so many times, and everything in the end, it's gonna turn out fine. If you bake your, I bake mine on a cookie sheet, but if you bake yours on a loaf pan, I mean in like a cake pan that's round, or in a pie pan that's round, oftentimes that helps if your filling is sort of non-cooperative, you know, that there's always one, and as you get more comfortable, you'll use more and more fillings that are more and more exciting, like caramelized onion. Caramelized onion is great, but it's really hard to stuff a challah with because of the slipperiness of the onions and the oil and things like that. So you have to, it's a skill set, and this is, once you see how it works, you can apply it to, you know, almost anything, not jelly beans or gummy bears, because that's gross, because then the sugar melts off and the little thing in the middle is still left, so don't do that. But pretty much anything else you can use. Okay, so now we'll go back to the hand cams. See, these are beautiful. So, okay, so we've done just a little bit, just a hint, so you'll have a spiral of Nutella in your challah. If you're more comfortable, if your dough was rolling out nicely and you can really get your dough nice and wide, you can put a little bit more in. Like I said, it's something that you have to sort of see what's going on in the dough in front of you and how it's going to behave, and go from there, because everybody wants more and more and more and more. Obviously, it's delicious, but if you go too much on the more side, it'll come back and bite you, because you won't be able to seal it properly. Now, this is a thin filling, like I was telling you before. So you're going to roll this up almost like it's like a cinnamon roll. If you've ever had like a cinnamon roll dough, it's a tight roll. Just pinch down the edge. See how Phoebe's doing it? Beautiful. Okay.
This dough is driving me crazy.
Well, maybe the honey spice will be nicer to you tonight. Or, you know what? They'll come up to your room in the middle of the night and be like, Phoebe,
Oh no.
we're in a fight.
Oh no.
See?
I love Nutella.
See, I know. So
I put it on white bread because I'm really awesome and a culinary genius.
You know what? Nutella is good on anything. Oops. Nutella and pretzels, I like.
Did you have a friend who taught you how to put it on like cheese or something?
A cheese taco.
Yes. And it was Nutella in the middle.
And it was Nutella or peanut butter. It's a
I
classic.
had it with peanut butter.
No, we had the peanut butter cheese taco.
I don't remember the
Yeah, you and Boaz really like it.
Okay.
It's a healthy snack right there. You got some protein and calcium. All right, so now look. See, these look a little bit different because they're stuffed, but you have your 3 strands just like we had a minute ago, but they're stuffed with something. See how we did that? You pinch the ends and you pinch the seal all the way down. Make sure you flour your surface lightly under your strands, because of you don't want it to stick. So there. Now the top, so the left goes over, then the right, then the left, then the right, and the left. Woo! Phoebe, you're on fire. The
Sorry, I
right.
can go down.
See, I'm telling you, it comes like on autopilot. Then you pinched and tucked. And now what we've ended up with is a long, skinny strand. And now again, You may spiral it up.
Do the other side this time.
See how she mixes it up. You're so fair, Phoebe. So equitable.
Thank you. What a great compliment for young children.
It is a good compliment to
I forgot
be
such a
fair.
big word.
I know. Well, you're a very smart child, and you're almost 15, so you're very old.
Oh, wow.
There we go. We pinched and tuck underneath. Okay.
Over this down now.
All right. So there you go. Now it's ready to do its 20 to 30 minute rise. All right, Aru. Now let's clean the surface because we got Nutella everywhere.
Awesome.
And then we're going to, I'll actually do that if you would like to start to peel the apple.
Yay.
You two are having way too much fun together over there.
I know,
I'm
well-
very, very impressed.
Oh, well, thank you. We are quite the team. Last week we did a class together. We did 4 classes last week. And all but like at the end, everyone's asking questions and they're like, Phoebe, you really need your own show.
Normally I talk a lot more. I'm a little tired tonight, but normally I'm the funny one.
I'm sometimes funny. I'm like marginally funny, like 1 out of every 17 times. All right, fine.
Well, I'm loving it.
Good. All right, so honey spice. Ta-da! So our honey spice dough, if this is the dough that you chose to make, or you made it both like I did, it's beautiful. It smells great. It's Rosh Hashanah in a dough. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make an apple pie filling inside of it, which will make it even more awesome. I call for Granny Smith apples in my filling. I say 1 medium. We actually have 2 here because I can only get small ones there for a while. So, but you need around 1 medium Granny Smith apple. You can use another kind of apple if you want. I find the Granny Smith, I really like the way that the tartness tastes with the sweet because we're going to be adding, sugar, but also because moisture. Whenever you have a fresh ingredient like mushrooms or onions or strawberries or apples, the liquid becomes an issue because as it bakes, it steams and comes out in the dough and then it becomes sticky. So I always say the Granny Smith because they're not quite as juicy, but if you really like the different kinds of apple, you can use it. I suggest for all the apples that we use, after you dice it, I suggest patting it dry with a paper towel to give it a little bit of extra dryness. All right.
So once you've wrapped them round, can you put them in a round aluminum pan to rise and then put them in the oven that way?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Definitely. Different people have different opinions about no pan versus a pan. On a sheet, it's a little bit somehow softer sometimes. And when you have an aluminum pan, it gets a little crustier. So sometimes that is, but when you use a pan, it also makes sure to keep your dough in a circle. It's definitely a great safety net and will have more consistent results. Okay, so I'm gonna weigh this out.
Oh, you're so productive doing that already.
I know, I'm telling you all. We've been having too much fun now. It's getting late and we gotta power through.
Oh no.
It's all right. We can still do it.
Rad.
All right. Cool. Can I say gnarly?
No. I get to choose which random old terms you bring back.
It's not old. You know what? There's a lot of people that like to say the word gnarly, not lately, but there was a time when people did, I think. If not, it's okay. Let's bring it back. I can show Phoebe. We can make gnarly cool again. What was the other word that I really liked that I brought back? I don't remember.
Say
Bonkers.
sassy a lot.
Sassy is always good. But
Bunkers.
that's a great word. I worked really hard. I made a push for it and it did come back. I want you to know. Very powerful. Not really.
I prefer whack.
Whack. Yeah. Crack is whack. That was a very popular thing back in my day. Not crack, but they said that was all over the news. Crack is whack.
Now they say it's not cool to cool in school.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
It's in front of the school police officer's doorway. It's kind of funny
It's
actually.
not cool. They just really, they went hardcore on that rhyming. It isn't cool to jewel in school. I did not know what jewel
You can
was.
do loud at school though. It's okay. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No, never good. Anyways, so I've got my dough in half, and now I'm taking the halves and I'm butterfly stretching them out. It smells so good. All right.
Really loud chop. I have no idea why.
Pop master. Now, here we go. I suggest that I had called for 3 tablespoons of softened margarine or butter on your on your ingredient list. You do not have to use them, obviously, but we're going for an apple pie filling. Now, you can cook your apples and make it like a true apple pie filling if you want, but I kind of like the consistency that having fresh apples in your dough gives you.
Love it.
So
Favorite.
it's wonderful, but we also, in apple pie, we like that gooey yumminess, and by spreading a tablespoon or so of margarine or butter on your strand before you fill it, it helps that gloopy yumminess come out. So that's why I suggest that. I also have you covering these apples in cinnamon and sugar, but I also know that a lot of you are trying to not use as much sugar, which is fine also. So as long as you put cinnamon on there, cinnamon acts as a way to absorb moisture. So as long as you put just the cinnamon on there, you don't have to put the sugar on there. It's all about choice. You could also put Nutella underneath here instead of margarine or butter and have like a Nutella apple pie.
Never tried that one. Could you like caramel or something?
Yes, I do make a caramel apple pie. I was going to try and find a non-dairy caramel. Some of you call it caramel. That's incorrect. That is the only thing that's wrong. No,
I feel like so mad when I say it. It's all your fault.
it's not my fault. I blame Missouri.
That's the entirety of the state of Missouri.
No, probably not, but 9:14, I'll be laying at my house in St. Louis. That's what we said. Okay, so then I'm just spreading around a tablespoon or so of margarine on the
Mandy, can you repeat the margarine instructions?
It's just 3 tablespoons of softened margarine or butter. 1 tablespoon is spread on each flattened strand. And it just helps make a nice, gooey, yummy filling.
Great, thank you.
All right, now. Okay, so here we go. Here are all of our strands. They're all buttery. Well, this is margarine.
The apples are all chopped up.
The apples are chopped up. All right, and then I've mixed together the brown sugar and 1 tablespoon of the cinnamon. But first we're going to I actually add cinnamon just plain to the apples first for this. Just extra shot of cinnamon. I actually put them, I have little Mandylicious shot glasses. You can see them. See there, sort of? It's up, well, there, okay. It's very hard for me. Anyways, a friend gave them to me. I definitely drink plenty, but I've been using them in all the cooking classes. I do think it's so cute. All right, so Phoebe has pat dried the paper with a paper towel, these apples. Then I'm gonna put a tablespoon of cinnamon on top. All right, so that cinnamon coats the apples. Looks delicious.
No.
All right, and we do a sort of a medium dice, not too small, but you want to have it like if you have a salad and the pieces of salad, we'll put that on top after this. Are too big, then when you take a bite, like all of your leaves of green, your romaine lettuce is like hanging out of your mouth. So I like to do just the same thing. If you don't chop your apples small enough, then your pieces of apple will sort of be hard to bite into. So I like to leave them a little bit smaller, also to get more cinnamon on them. All right, and see, we're going to leave this right towards the middle as well. Would you like to do? We can finish that. Oh, awesome. Thank you. All right, and again, it's about 1/3 of the apples are going per strand, but use your best judgment. If your apple was ginormous, then you don't need to use all of your apple. If your apple was teeny tiny, you might want to get a little bit more. I think actually, we didn't even need the second apple, Phoebes. I'll just save that for later. All right, now we have the brown sugar and cinnamon mixture. Because this is apple pie, we're elevating it, and we're going to sprinkle this brown sugar and cinnamon mixture down right on top of your apples.
It's like so good.
It's amazing.
I haven't made this one with you yet.
No, I've not done a class on the apple pie challah. This is.
I would help you out with it.
Oh.
Is it new for this year? Or
No, the apple pie I did last year, but usually we do it with a plain dough. And when I do the honey spice dough, I usually just do traditional apples and cinnamon. So yes, this is a new special recipe.
Awesome.
Yay. All right, so now, instead, for the last, the thinner recipe for the Nutella, we roll it up like a cinnamon roll. But because this is thicker, we can't roll it up, obviously. So make sure your surface is floured underneath. And then we'll do the pinchy pinch. So you stretch the dough out on either side and pinch it in the middle. Here we go. That's weird. Okay, here we go. Pinch, stretch, and pinch. Stretch and pinch. All the way down. You're tucking it in. So it's all cozy. All your apples are so cozy in there.
Night, night, children.
Little...
Enjoy your time in the oven.
That's awful. It's very Hansel and Gretel.
Yes. I'm gonna wash my hands.
No.
As soon as we do this.
Okay, so there we go. I also gave you ingredients for a glaze. That's done after this is completely cool. So we won't be making that with you tonight, but it's powdered sugar and water and a little bit of salt, and you can use as much or as little water as you want to get it to the consistency that you would like. So just keep that in mind when you see those ingredients later. If you want a very thin glaze, like on a donut, you would add more water. If you want to have like a thick, like a big white glaze, then it'd make it a little less water. It's all very flexible. And if you add a little too much water, you can always put in more powdered sugar.
Can you repeat what you did with the brown sugar?
Yes, so this is brown sugar and cinnamon, and then we just sprinkled a little bit of it on top of every row of apples. You're gonna have leftover because I never know exactly how much you're gonna want to put on, but it's great on all sorts of things, so I always just put it in a container and I use it for later. But it was just a brief sprinkling on top of all the apples, which is probably why it got missed. Okay, there we go. This is it, Phoebe. This is your moment. Is there a song that I can sing for you?
Well, there is a song that has "This Is My Moment" in it, but I don't.
You know Kelly Clarkson's "A Moment Like This." A moment like this. No, okay, that's from American Idol. It's a show.
This is from something else.
Okay, so
Some people, right, wait a lifetime for a moment like this. It's a great song.
Oh, see? Thank you, everybody. I'll sing it to you later in bed when I cuddle you.
Awesome. Rad.
Twist and shout. Yes, this is from I made a Challah playlist on Spotify yesterday, and everyone's so excited about it because the order of the songs that I made them were all things like versus like this section with the recipe, and then so it's like a song called Salt, and a song like Pour Some Sugar on Me, and then there's shaping the dough. Anyway, the whole thing is hilarious. It's on, you can actually, the link to it is on my Instagram. I made a highlight because so many people were requesting it. It's crazy. But anyways, it was very fun to bake today, actually. And people tagged me today that they were baking with the Challah baking playlist. And I felt very happy for them. It's a really fun playlist. And it does, just so everyone knows, it does end with Mandy by Barry Manilow.
So sad. It's like a heartbreaking song. It's got a dead dog.
No, it's a song about how awesome I am. Okay, fun. All right, here we go. Last time. Here we go, Queen. Roll it up. Beautiful.
The apples are like stabbing their way through the dough. They're like, free.
It's okay. So if any apples poke through, just like here for Phoebe, it's not a big deal. I think they just look beautiful.
I think it looks awesome. You know what apples you try to escape? I would just encourage it. Cool.
All right, now this would also get covered for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But what we'll do right now, just pretend it's been 20 minutes, and I will show you how we do the egg wash, and then we'll all finish up. So here we go. Oh, this is an egg yolk mixed with around a teaspoon or two of water, beaten very hard, but you can also use a whole egg if you'd like. The trick to egg washing, especially around challah, is to go from the outside in, because what happens is they have all these cute little grooves, which are wonderful, but the egg yolk sort of settles into those grooves, and then you end up with like a cooked egg in the middle, which is sometimes not the look we're going for. So then after your egg wash, you can put on any topping you like. Sometimes people like to put on turbinado sugar or more cinnamon sugar. Whatever you like would go on top. Baking instructions are 350 degrees. The unstuffed challahs, I give a wide, because everyone's up to different, 30 to 40 minutes. Mine are always between like 36 and 38, but some people actually have theirs cooked much faster, so check them. I check the top middle of each of the challahs to see if that dough looks set, because that's the last place to cook. That's why sometimes we'll have a doughy center, because it's the last place to cook. And then for the stuffed challahs, it's an additional 10 minutes.
We have 3 questions.
3, okay.
Have you made dough in advance and frozen? Is it before the second rise?
Yes. So my recipe, again, every recipe is different, but my recipe, I can freeze it after the first rise. I keep it all together. I don't braid it. I just put it in the freezer. Or that stays fine for up to a month. Or you can refrigerate it even for up to 5 days. If you're freezing it, let it defrost in the fridge overnight and then put it on your counter for about 20 to 30 minutes before you want to use it, because that you want to get it so it's not so cold. And the same thing if you just refrigerate the dough, also put it on your counter 20 to 30 minutes. And then I sort of suggest doing a shorter second rise. So instead of a 20 to 30 minute second rise, I'm just like a 10 to 15 minute, but it doesn't matter. You just
Are there vegan options for egg wash?
Yes. Oh, yes. I have. If you look on my Instagram, I did put that up, and then everyone always comments all different things. I just use oil. I find that to be something that doesn't really affect the flavor, but a lot of people have started using. They use like soy milk with maple syrup because it gives them a good color. Some people have been using this very popular. It's called Aquafaba, I think it's called, and it's the liquid that chickpeas come in. People just love it. They say it makes a beautiful finish. I think that's disgusting, but no, no, it's not. I love chickpeas. I think they taste like hummus, but people love it and they swear by it, and definitely should go for it, because if that's vegan as an option for you, then it's definitely worth exploring, because people do all sorts of fun things with it because it's enjoyable. But I just like to make hummus with it. I actually, for my hummus, I leave half of that chickpea liquid in when I pour it in. Very cool. Next.
And then there's a couple questions about Nutella being dairy and if there's dairy-free options.
Yes. So Nutella is dairy. You can get, there is a par-of version you can sometimes get at kosher stores, like the hazelnut, who makes it? Is it Elite? Elite makes it, like in the red containers. You have to be careful because there's a dairy version and then there's a par-of version. When I want to make it par-of, I actually just make it from scratch, because it's really much easier than you think. You just have, it's a matter of you have to toast the hazelnuts, and then sometimes you can buy toasted hazelnuts, and then you just have to sort of like rub them on a towel on the outside. There's like a little outside of the nut comes off, like the peel. What I'm talking about? What? Husk? A husk? I don't know what's that. I have no idea. Whatever it is, that thing you don't want in there, and then that's it. Then you're done. Then you pour it into your food processor, and I think you add and you make hazelnut butter, and you add cocoa powder and sugar, and it's it. Like, it just comes together in a second. There's a whole bunch of recipes you can Google, but they are. It tastes great. I made it for a friend of mine's birthday. I had a whole meal planned for Shabbat for Friday night. I just invited him over for his birthday. I'm like any flavor challah you want, I will make for you. And he said, I want a Nutella challah. It's my favorite. I didn't want to embarrass him because he didn't separate meat and milk, but I do. And I had all the meal planned. So I started freaking out, but then I realized I could just make it from scratch. So that is what I did. And ever since then, it's not a big deal to make part if you want. Okay, how about that? Any other questions? If you have any other questions, you can just message me on Instagram too.
I think the baking instructions you said was 350.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so that was
350 for 30 to 40 minutes for the unstuffed, and then 10 minutes more for stuffed. But check the top middle of your dough, because that should be set.
How do you check the top middle of your dough?
It looks like it stretches, like almost like it's like little strands of pull. I call it a thready belly. I have a few posts of it on my Instagram page. You can sort of stretch through. Some people like to tap the bottom. Some people like to use a thermometer. I can't tap the bottom because I burn my hands off. I can't use a thermometer because I have stuff in the middle of my dough, which the temperature is different, and also I can't have holes in my challah because I don't like the way that looks. But the thready belly technique usually works. Like I say 99% of the time.
So we can find you directly. What is your name on Instagram?
Mandylicious Challah. It's very hard.
Is it all one?
It's all one word. MandyLiciousChallah.
Nice.
Just rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
You know.
I changed my name earlier. It was Marlene Licious. It was everything was just so delicious.
She also changed mine. She texted me that she changed my name to Karen Licious, which I think blows like really great. So
everyone's delicious. You should be.
I think that's good for the questions. I know we were running till 8, so we don't want to keep you. So we try not to keep our speakers, which is really great. And we really want to thank you. That was amazing. I know I'm not a baker. I think people here who know me know that. So I'm actually sad that I didn't get to bake. And I have many people that are on here who I am personally very close with. I'm looking at you right now. Most of them live very close to me. Feel free to drop your challahs off at the door. Happy to take leftovers. But anyway, Mandy, thank you so much. Marlene and I, BZD, Beth Tefillah Congregation, and Marlene and myself personally really thank you for being here tonight, for doing this. Thank you to your daughter. Thank you to your husband for doing a great job with the camera tonight. Thank you to everybody who was on tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you had fun. I saw so many people baking on here. If you did bake, please make sure to post your pictures. If you do, please tag BZD, please tag BT. Let us know you had fun. We'd love to see the final results. I think that's really it, unless you have something to add, Marlene, to this evening.
This is amazing. I learned so much, and
we did.
I'm gonna wait for the email with the video to come through,
yes,
so I can bake.
We'll try to send an email before Rosh Hashanah if you want to watch it again. And again, we wish everybody a Shana Tova. If we don't, we definitely won't see you before that, but unless it's on social media. So Shana Tova from BT, Shana Tova from BZD.